Summary of the Negotiation Fieldbook. Simple strategies to help you negotiate everything. By Grande Lum. Win-win negotiations. Everyone has to negotiate sooner or later. The objective of any negotiation ought to be a win-win, that is, a negotiation where all the involved parties walk away satisfied. You may or may not get everything you want, but do not think of negotiating as a zero-sum game with a winner and a loser. The negotiations with the most enduring benefits are those in which you work to help your negotiating counterparties get what they need, and what they want. The most important ideas to keep in mind about negotiation are: plan carefully, know what you are going to do. Prepare, think in advance about your goals and boundaries. Determine a strategy for achieving the goal. Try to make the pie bigger so everyone can get a good slice. Study, be aware that your counterparty is likely to use some common negotiating tactics. You will need to know how to deal with them, and how to use them, also. Negotiation tactics. Think of these tactics as obstacles to the success of your negotiation. They are common, partly because a substantial number of negotiating guidebooks recommend them. Certainly many of your negotiating counterparties will attempt to use them. 1. The haggle. The haggler opens a negotiation with a lowball or unreasonable offer, and in return for small concessions attempts to extract big concessions from you. You can respond to the haggle by prevention. To prevent the haggle from happening at all, discuss with your counterparty how the negotiation should proceed before it begins. Examination. Ask at the beginning of the negotiation what your counterparty's real interest is, and make your own real interest clear. Ask again whenever your counterparty begins to haggle. Alternatives. Think about your alternatives and options. Prepare an alternative that you can implement without the agreement of the counterparty. Sometimes this may mean simply walking away. 2. Nibbling. The counterparty returns to an issue that you consider already agreed upon and closed. Deal with this by using rules. Establish ground rules for the negotiation in advance, and make it clear that an issue will only reopen when a counterparty presents a compelling argument. In case the counterparty cites a change in circumstances as the reason, make sure the ground rules stipulate what kind of change would justify reopening an issue. Exploration. Learn why your counterparty wants to revisit the closed issue. Identifying real interests. Ask again to determine what the other party's real interest is and let the counterparty know your real interest, and the constraints within which you must work. 3. The flinch. Whenever you make an offer, the other party treats it as though it were outrageous. Deal with this by explaining calmly what your criteria are. Try to learn more about the counterparty's criteria. 4. Absentee decision maker. The counterparty may claim that only a higher party, like the CEO or a senior lawyer, has the authority to make a decision. Make sure that you determine early in the negotiation what level of authority and power your counterparty really has. Otherwise, you could negotiate with the wrong person. 5. Hoarding. The counterparty treats everything you say as if it is etched in stone, in order to make it difficult for you to brainstorm or float trial balloons. Counter it before it happens by making it clear in the ground rules of the negotiation that brainstorming will occur, and that not every idea constitutes a commitment. 6. Spinning. Each party cites facts to support its case, but no one listens. Defend against this tactic by trying to find some common ground with your counterparty. Listen so that you develop a better understanding of the other party's position. Then explain your own position. Make it clear that understanding is not the same thing as agreement, and try to reach a mutual understanding. 7. Ultimatum. If the counterparty makes a take-it-or-leave-it offer, your options are to reassert that negotiations are still underway, and explore alternatives, to accept the offer with reservations, or to terminate the negotiations and proceed with your prearranged alternative if you cannot get a negotiated solution. The icon. Successful negotiators understand the icon, interests, criteria, options, and no agreement alternatives. Interests. The involved parties' goals, aspirations, worries, fears, and motives are the fundamental underpinnings of any negotiation. Criteria. Each party uses its own set of measurements, precedents, guidelines, and tests to assess the merits of any proposal. The best negotiators take time to prepare criteria in advance and do their best to understand the criteria of their counterparty. For the counterparties to accept your proposal, it must meet their criteria, so knowing those criteria makes it possible to shape offers that are likely to be viewed favorably. Options: these are the alternatives, solutions, or proposals that either party might consider to satisfy mutual or conflicting interests. No agreement alternatives. This is the course of action that becomes available to a party who walks away from the negotiation without agreeing to any option. All of the above are important, but the most important may be the no agreement alternative. Prior to entering a negotiation, think carefully about your alternatives if you do not reach a satisfactory agreement. It is possible for a negotiator to be too intent on getting to an agreement, even a bad agreement, which can be much worse than no agreement at all. By defining in advance your alternatives to a negotiated agreement, you free yourself from pressure to get to some agreement at any cost. The 4Ds. Successful negotiators do 4 things extremely well. 1. Design, set goals, plan with focus and clarity, and prepare for the negotiation as carefully as an actor prepares for a new role. 2. Dig, inquire about the other party's interests to test their assumptions and preconceptions. The best way to dig is to begin with general questions, follow up with specific questions, and conclude with reflective questions that rephrase the answers to confirm that you understand correctly what you have heard. The best negotiators listen not only to what their counterparties say, but also to how they say it. Some of the most important clues to real interests lie in tones of voice, facial expressions, gestures, body language, and even in what the counterparty does not say. 3. Develop. Examine options to see which fit one or the other party's conflicting interests and which promise to satisfy their mutual interests. Your goal during this developmental stage is to winnow the list of options to potentially workable solutions. Testing each option against clear criteria allows negotiators to use time wisely and not waste it talking about options that will never be part of an agreement. 4. Decide. The final decision will be a choice to agree or not to agree. The best negotiators have a plan for either decision. They may or may not opt to disclose their alternatives. In some cases, disclosing the fact that you have an alternative may help speed your counterparty to an acceptable agreement. In other cases, it may lead the counterparty to dig in and fight even harder. The keys. Astute negotiators keep the following key points in mind and act on them. Preparation is critical. Beginning to negotiate without a clear understanding of goals, strategy, and alternatives, especially the alternative to an agreement, is foolish. Build value. The goal of the negotiation is to create value, and if an agreement does not create value, it is too costly at any price. Take charge. Assert yourself over the substance of the negotiation and over the relationship with the counterparty. Too many negotiators are assertive about substance but indifferent to the relationship. Over time, the relationship may prove to be more valuable than any other element of the negotiation. Designate duties. When teams negotiate, assign each individual a clearly defined role. Otherwise, chaos ensues. Deal with runaway emotions promptly. Put the substance of the negotiation aside and focus on bringing the people into line. Negotiation takes 2 parties. Each party will have distinct interests and priorities. Moreover, these interests and priorities may change slightly or significantly over the course of the negotiation. Do not expect the negotiation to follow a rigid timetable or sequence. Discuss alternatives to an agreement whenever feasible. The more the parties understand about each other, the better for the negotiation and the relationship. Answer statements with questions. When your counterparties state their positions or make demands, explore the thinking behind their words. Bake a bigger pie. Your counterparty's interest in a particular small issue may be a consequence of concern about some broader or unstated issue. Try to expand the scope of the negotiation so everyone gets what he or she needs. Listen behind, between and beyond the words. Savvy negotiators are excellent at reading body language and sniffing out real interests, priorities, and opportunities. Firmly protect and advance your interests, but be flexible about how. There may be many ways for you, and your counterparty, to achieve your interests and win. Know when it isn't working. If it seems that no agreement is possible, do not feel defensive about asserting your right not to agree. Go to your alternative and let your counterparty know you are doing so. Resist the temptation to win at another's expense. The closer you get to a final agreement, the more important it is to make sure that the deal is better and better for all concerned. When negotiations stall, return to the statement of interests. Keep asserting your interests and keep asserting those of the counterparty. Keeping the interests in clear view, as a constant priority, puts interim obstacles in their proper perspective. Be disciplined and persevere. Write summaries of every agreement at every stage. Be specific and detailed. Share the summaries to ensure that they are correct. The use of humor can help people be less guarded. If it is suitable, use humor to make people comfortable, soften a tough statement or deflect a harsh tactic. Delay can be your ally. Putting off a difficult issue until negotiations reach a later stage in the agenda gives you time to consult your team and to build up goodwill. If you need an immediate delay, suggest breaking for lunch or stopping for the day. Walking away doesn't have to mean burning your bridges. Even if you feel pushed to walk away from negotiations, explain why you are going. Know yourself. If you are responding emotionally, be aware of the triggers that are upsetting you. You can deflate stress by analyzing it, monitoring your ego, and staying focused on the objectives you are trying to achieve.